What's up, Fin fans? Jim Grieshaber, call me Grease, and man, was it not pretty. Man, did it set football back 100 years, and man, was it tough to watch. But the Miami Dolphins are winners of 3 games in a row.
Hey, it's Jeff Zgonina. It was raining in Miami, snowing where I'm at, and the Dolphins won a game by the skin of their teeth.
Kyle Krabs, host of Locked On Dolphins, and nobody in the NFL right now is better at making you sweat out a dub than your Miami Dolphins.
Fins up! It's the Dolphins Squad. Everything Miami Dolphins, every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from South Beach. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Sunshine, speed, and squad goals. The Dolphins Squad Show starts now.
Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. I also want to point out that no one has ever, not one time, made a play on South Beach. It's a misnomer. You know what I'm saying? Unless they were playing volleyball at Penrod's, then maybe they made a play on South Beach. Or for Miami Beach High, like Rohan Marley playing linebacker back in the day. But we're only joking around and playing around with that. But the Miami Dolphins with a tough one today, guys. They get it done 21-17. Thanks to Minkah Fitzpatrick for running that ball back on the 2-point conversion. Otherwise, it would have been a field goal game. And who in the hell knows what would have happened with the Saints on that last possession. But in a complete whirling dervish of a Tasmanian devil was driving the car as you were just literally being driven down a cartoon set. I mean, this was a movie from start to finish. I don't know how to even characterize this game. Z, I'll start with you. The Miami Dolphins come out in the first half. They're dominating this team. They had like 17 yards rushing with 3 minutes left in the second quarter and 4 first downs. And the Dolphins are up 16-0. You know, you're kicking field goals, not scoring touchdowns. You have an interception that you've thrown in the red zone. And it had that eerily similar feel to the Ravens game when you got blown out in the second half, except I don't think the Saints are capable of blowing anybody out. Otherwise, they might have. But the Miami Dolphins look so great in this game for such a stretch of time. They're running the football. Their defense is dominating. You're seeing another takeaway. And then they start to throw the ball, and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, I mean, we come out, we take the ball right down, we run it in. We're up 7-0. Defense is playing great. They only give, 63 yards in the first half. They're balling out, right? We get the strip sack. What do we do the next play? We launch it up into double coverage like we've been doing all year round, and it's a pick. And I was just like, oh, here we go again. And it's the offense started that way. But again, the defense played well in the beginning of the game, and I was like excited. But again, if you're only kicking field goals, you're always opening that door for that team to come back later in the game, and that's what happened today.
Yeah, and Kyle, that was exactly what happened the way Z just said it, because you should have been up huge in this game. And look, you score 1 touchdown, kick 3 field goals, it's 16-0, right? I mean, even 2 of those field goals are touchdowns. You're talking 8 more points, and this game is long, long over before you're even batting an eye or worried about it later on. But in the NFL, as you know, you let a team hang around long enough, and crazy things happen, man. Everything I see in the grocery store, stranger things. Dorito bag, stranger things. Soda case, stranger things. This football game was all stranger things today. I literally, until the very last play of the game, I thought somehow the Dolphins would find a way to lose this game. I thought it was just scripted that it would somehow happen, Kyle. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it's felt like we were playing with our food there in the first half, where you're having all the success running the ball. You're on pace to run for 215 yards against New Orleans through halftime, and it's like, man, we're really owning the line of scrimmage, but whether it's kind of a mistimed, whether you want to put the blame at the feet of Tua or Achane on that incomplete screen pass that would have been a walk-in touchdown. I don't know what the hell we're doing on 1st and 10. You're taking over on the Saints 37-yard line, fresh off a turnover, and we've got the launch codes, and we put a moon ball up there for no reason, right? I mean, there's the near interception that the Saints challenged that Tua had when you're in the second half of this game. You got the guy in the flat, he's open, and it was just like every pivotal moment for somebody to step up and make a play on the offensive side of the ball that could have put this game on ice. it didn't feel like anybody did it at any point, and you had opportunities for what felt like 48 minutes of this football game to do it. And I think that's the part that drives you nuts. Now, winning ugly is always better than losing pretty. And the Dolphins, they won ugly today. We are not a team that should be thumbing our nose at any win with how the start of this season went, right? So I'm excited that this team got a win. I'm glad the defense generally played the way that it did. Got a little loose and a little shaky there towards the end. I'd love to hear from the pool report from the officials on what the ruling was for the onside kick review on who they felt that ball touched. They said the ruling stood that the receiving team touched the ball first. Meanwhile, Nick Westbrook-Akine is out here jumping out of the way of that thing like it's a grenade. So, I mean, just that was an opportunity to get on the ball proactively, make a play on it, and prevent it. And instead, everybody kind of just lets the ball roll right through the eligible zone, and then New Orleans ends up recovering it. So a lot of corrections that need to be made. I was inspired with how they started coming out of the bye, but very quickly that enthusiasm faded as we couldn't put together a complete effort. And there's not a lot of teams you'll play in the league that you could play like this for your win.
Well, I'm going to point it at one person, and it's number one. I know that, look, I mean, on that play, and I forget exactly when it was in the game, when Mike runs the ball on 4th down, you kick it, you pin them deep. In that situation, they can't move the ball 5 feet, let alone 15, 20 yards down the field, and you go for it. You give them half a field, and I'm sitting there. I defend Mike on a lot of these, and on that one, I just couldn't. And I'll get your thoughts on that one, Kyle and Z. But, you know, when Devon Achane's running the ball the way he did, 22 carries, and again, 134 yards, 6+ yards per carry, goes over 1,000 yards. He's one of only 5 backs in the league, over 800 yards rushing in the past 3 seasons. He's having an MVP-type season if it weren't for a guy like Taylor. But Achane is right there. And if this team didn't stink as bad as it did, the way that he's played on a team like this, running the ball, catching it out of the backfield, where I believe he's 3rd in the league for running backs catching the ball out of the backfield. And Kyle, this is going to drive you nuts. And you had to fix your hair before the segment, because otherwise it would have gone like Dick Vitale out of your mind, you know, because Achane touched the ball 3 times in the 3rd quarter. You know, you're literally starting to come to the point in the game where you're going to want to try to put it away. And 2 of those 3 touches were on the first 2 plays of the first drive of the 3rd quarter, when he ran for 9, ran for no gain, and they had the horrible play action you talked about. They missed it with Julian Hill, and he didn't touch the ball again. So 3 times in the 3rd quarter for a guy who I think had 88 yards on 13 carries at halftime.
Yeah, it's surprised they didn't get him more involved in the passing game, right? When you kind of got to feel very early on, we're not going to have a very fruitful day attempting forward passes downfield, right? And I don't know whether that was Tua was off. I don't know if that was wet ball Tua. I don't know if that was Brandon Staley is the defensive coordinator for the Saints, who they infamously put together that plan in 2022 that completely ruined what was a humming offense. Otherwise, I'd have to watch the tape to be able to speak with confidence on what happened as far as the passing game today, other than Tua's accuracy was off and the timing was not where it needed to be. And it felt like we turned down some completions in favor of trying to try more ambitious throws and left some plays on the field. But when you've got a guy like Achane, even if you want to change the pace of your offense and you don't want to get too predictable, this is a guy that's tailor-made to get some manufactured touches in the passing game. And the Dolphins plenty of times this season have spread it out and run option routes with him, trying to get him matched up on linebackers. And they got a rookie linebacker in Danny Stutzman that was playing a lot. Their safety, Justin Reed, went down early in the game. So like you would have felt like you could have had some matchups there if you wanted to, hey, we don't want to fall into the trap of being too predictable, but we still want to get Achane his touches. That could have been a way that you went about your business doing so. But I was glad to at least see that they adjusted. It felt like New Orleans very quickly decided that they were going to spam play in the edges and set hard edges. And Miami, it felt like as this game went on, they found some more success getting the ball downhill between the tackles, and that's where some of the chunk runs happened for him throughout the course of the game.
Yeah, and one of the things where I looked at Achane on 1st down, Z, I mean, the way that they run that toss sweep and then he cuts it back, I love that play on 1st down. And the inside draw is not bad either, but I love that toss sweep with the cutback. It gives him the option to keep going for that corner or cut it back against the grain, which he's so good at making guys miss. And we know that he was the fastest guy in the draft at his position. But the unique thing about him is he makes so many guys miss. He's so strong, bounces off arm tackles. You can't bring him down with an arm tackle. And with the new tackling rules, good luck bringing him down, period. So, you got Jalen Wright involved a little bit in the game tonight. You've had Gordon in recent weeks, but I wonder what it is, Z, with your coach's hat here. And you're a defensive coach, right? And you were a coach on the field when you were playing. But when a guy like Mike in a situation like that during a game kind of hands you something the way he did today, it says, hey, I know the running game's working, but I need to keep throwing the ball. You know what I mean? I mean, as a coach, and you're sitting there and you're going, one, as the coach of the other team, and you're sitting there going, this guy's feeding right into his own weakness. And then number two, as a coach on your own team, and you're going, what the hell is this guy doing? Like, feed Achane the ball. There was a stretch in that third quarter where he kept going back and saying it was almost as if he had to force feed it with Tua and say, no, I'm not going to lose you. I need to keep your confidence somehow. And it's almost like he was calling the game that way. I mean, there was almost no rhyme or reason to that McGenius play calling today.
Yeah, but, again, depends what Mike saw out there. He can get a feel for it. He might just want to change it up. Again, you can't just run the ball every down. You know what I'm saying? You got to keep changing it up, and how many people are in the box. You just want to loosen it up a little bit so you can get those big runs. But you always, if the run's going, you want to stay behind it. I get that. As someone who's not making the calls. Again, he's the guy making the call, so he's going to call it. I mean, and as a coach, you have to just, okay, coach. Nothing I can do about that.
Nothing you can do. What did you see, Kyle? I mean, did you almost see that? It looked to me like he was coaching two games. One was to try to have success on the field, and two was to try not to completely lose his QB1 between the ears.
Yeah, it's the exchange that really kind of sent me over the moon was that after the Rasul Douglas interception, that end of half sequence where Rasul returns it all the way inside the 40-yard line for New Orleans, and you get like a 9-yard run to start, and then you take your only timeout, and then you run the ball again, and then you just let the clock roll down. It's like, oh, okay, we're going to play for 48-yard field goal. Okay, like most teams, you're up 13-0. You just get a sudden change like that. You've got a timeout and over a minute left of game clock. You'd think you'd come out and be inspired to kind of go for the kill and get a score.
Yeah.
And that was the exchange for me that was like, okay, I don't know how much of this is we're playing the game script that we're being given, or we don't want to do too much, or I don't want to put the ball in harm's way because the last time we had a sudden change, we gave the ball right back to him trying to take a big shot. And if that's the case, the more that they find ways to win, but it plays like this, the more I think it kind of rings true some of what the early season reporting is that Mike is doing exactly what you're doing, Grease. And I think that helps build his argument to continue to be the head coach is if he's calling plays around the quarterback, which is what it felt like at times, especially that end of half sequence for me.
Exactly what that was.
Then, that I think that helps Mike's argument to stay a whole lot. And you could make the case, well, we've already had our pound of flesh because Chris Greer's gone and he was the GM that picked him and was part of the decision to give him a second contract. But I think everybody watching the Dolphins right now would agree that the current situation with the passing game and the turnovers in particular is not it's not a sustainable situation, right? But this is what you have to work with right now. So how much chicken salad can you make out of chicken you-know-what? And that's what we're finding out on a weekly basis.
And it's like, how long till Tua's QB2 in San Francisco, and will Mike be the coordinator there with him when it happens? I mean, seriously, because that seems to be the reclamation place for quarterbacks. And when I'm looking at this game, I literally, the only thing with the Dolphins guys that I'm even questioning is Tua and Mike's play calling around him. That's what it was. I mean, when you're handy, and I said it last week on the show, 2 weeks ago, after the Commanders game, you're calling plays with one hand tied behind your back. You don't have half the playbook. It's raining. He can't throw that ball. It's, you want to go deep and try to hit right after a fumble recovery? Great idea. Not with this guy, as you pointed out, Z, going down the sideline for Waddle. That ball wasn't even close. It wasn't anywhere near where it could have been catchable for Waddle on that interception in the end zone. He threw a ball behind Hill on a beautiful play action on 3rd and 1. Threw it a yard behind him when he was right there wide open. The pass to Achane that you talked about, Kyle, could have been a little bit better throw. Certainly should have been caught. but you don't have that issue with a guy like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes because that ball is right on the button every time. And so I ask you, Z, and we're going to pick this up on the other side because we're going to take a quick break before you answer this. How likely is it that QB1 gets his confidence back right now with the way that he's played these last couple of games? Early in the year, leading the league in interceptions, resilience coming back, looking good, playing very well against the Falcons. Tua was fantastic against Atlanta in that game. Can't take that away from him, right? Played really well against the Bills, and we kind of glossed over those 2 deep interceptions. Oh, they were just like punts. It's okay. But were they? Okay. And what is there to come no matter what you do these next few games? And you're trying to win. You're trying to keep this thing going. Now you're 5-7. You have a chance to pull the win in a game of 500. But you're coming out of this game going, man, my quarterback absolutely sucks. This is Dolphin Squad Show. Jim Grieshaber, call me Grease. And that's a real concern for the Dolphin fans. Like right now, everything else is looking good. The defense is getting takeaways. The tackling's gotten so much better. You're getting plays. Achan's playing all world. Waller's back. He had 2 big catches in the first half. Saw his impact right away. But your QB1 cannot make the most basic of throws right now, and most of it seems to be right here. We're going to talk to Z about that on the other side. Can Tua get it back between the ears? Right now, it looks like the Titanic sinking. Iceberg already passed. It's the Squad Show. It's Grease. It's Kyle. It's Z, and we are rolling on your Sunday. But the win is the win, right? 21-17, the final. We don't want to sit here and make it sound like it's a loss because first things first, it is a win for the Miami Dolphins. All right, let's take a quick break and tell you real quick about PrizePicks, and then we will keep it rolling on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. And I get a chance to tell you, there we go, about PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but they're not under the microscope like an NFL head coach. But also on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid, right? Like the big money of an NFL coach. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates: California, Texas, Georgia, you name it. Football Sundays, NBA tip-offs, keeps the games very exciting, man. Stack the action on the action. Favorite features, favorite players to help win. Mahomes, Steph Curry. See how my predictions play out, right? The new stacks feature also is a game changer. You can pick more on Steph's points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves my lineup. My lineup doesn't lose anyway, but it saves my lineup from a loss. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. With PrizePicks, it is good to be right. On the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Z, I think I gave the Gettysburg Address trying to get us to break 473,000 years ago when Greece started this commentary. But I want to go right to you about the confidence between the ears for Tua. It looks like it's just getting worse and worse for him. And you see him on the sideline. And you know how I can always tell? Like as soon as the camera hits him and he's going like that, he's got that fake smile. And, oh, yeah, he was over here and I should have thrown it over here. And like I'm 3. You can see it all over his face, man. It's gone.
Yeah, he showed no confidence today at all with any of his throws. He's throwing behind guys, over guys. He wasn't setting his feet. He was not comfortable throwing the ball at all. And even though the pocket wasn't that bad, I mean, he did get some collapse a lot, but some of those sacks he took, he should have threw the ball away. The first 2, he just sat there and stared down guys and didn't, escape and buy time, or just throw it away and go the next down. I mean, he's got to, speed up his rhythm and everything, I don't know. Some of those throws, I mean, there was no receiver around at all, and he's trying to blame other people. So he needs to take a hard look at himself, watch his game tape, and fix it because, the Jets, they squeaked one out today, and they're going to be coming. They're going to be coming.
Are going to be coming. And to your point, Z, throwing it over to you, Kyle, you see Tua holding the ball longer. You see him taking more sacks, took 4 today. Some more happy feet in the pocket. I'm not confident in his ability to get that ball into those windows. And as recently as the Bills game, The Bills game, he looked very confident back there, and he was making throws. Now, the 2 deep throws he didn't make, and they were interceptions. We laughed him off as punts down the field, but the intermediate game was there. The passing game out of the backfield, and you made a point earlier, Kyle, that I want to come back to, because he did get a security blanket back in Waller today, and we saw it with a couple of catches in that first half, one on the opening drive that led to a touchdown. Not much out of the backfield today, though. You talked about that earlier, Kyle, how on a day like today when Tua was really clearly struggling mentally, more throws out of the backfield might have helped him, no?
Yeah, and Devon Achane only had 1 target in this game. It was Malik Washington and Jalen Waddle were the target leaders. Washington had 5. He had 4 catches for 30 yards. He had more yards after catch than he had receiving yards, so it was a lot of creating yardage for himself. For Malik Washington, Jalen Waddle had 6 targets, 3 catches for 40 yards. Kind of a really quiet start. Darren Waller has the explosive play, the 34-yarder that New Orleans just kind of dropped the coverage, and Tua on that play did a nice job on anticipating that everybody was going to kind of go with the glance and waddle and lay the ball out there, and Waller makes a play. Greg Dulcich had 2 for 24. He had a 21-yard reception. He continues to flash a little bit. The second play he had to kind of just keep the offense from getting really backed up against the sticks when the Dolphins ran boot game was a really nice hands reception to go out and dig one low. So I like that you're getting the tight ends involved the way that they are. I mean, Waller and Dulcich combined for 4 catches for 71 yards. I think that's a nice development for the team. But, Achane not really getting involved. The other backs not really getting involved, where Jalen Wright had 3 for 16 out of the backfield carrying it. And Ollie Gordon had a couple of nice runs, but his kind of daily average got spoiled by that 4th and 1 where he tries to bounce outside and he loses yardage on 4th and 1. So he finishes the day for 3 carries for 10 yards on what was otherwise a good performance for him. So yeah, it'll be interesting for me to go back, and I really am eager to kind of see structurally what they tried to do and what was different, and try to get a feel for post-bye week. What did your self-scouting kind of tell you were some things you wanted to try to do differently? Because this target distribution does not look remotely close to what it did the last couple of weeks and the last month leading up to the bye week. So what if this was New Orleans with a good plan? What if this was things that you did differently? And that's, I think, what I have to work through personally when the tape drops tomorrow morning to kind of get a feel for how comfortable I am with how this offensive plan of attack played out versus how much of it was just execution.
Yeah, and this is for either one of you guys. I mean, Tua looks terrible back there. They're not doing anything on offense, and then he threads the needle on that beautiful throw to Waddle that sets up Patterson's field goal later on. So there was just instances where you can see that he can still make the throws. They're there. They're in the repertoire. That throw, you know which throw I'm talking about, Kyle, right? That slant to Waddle in between 3 guys. I mean, that's
over top of Demario Davis, or are you talking about the boot action one where they ran the RPO and he pulled it over Chase Young?
No, I'm talking about the slant over the middle in between 3 guys to set up the 4th field goal for Patterson, right? That's about as elite of an elite throw as you can make as an NFL quarterback. And he made it no problem. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe he snapped out of it, whatever it is. But then it came right back again, Z, on the next throw.
No, I know. I mean, again, Mike's got to look at it and figure out what throws this kid can make, to build that confidence that we're talking about back up inside him. He's got to get rid of the deep ball. I mean, he's had no success with it, unless it's, right before end of half or end of the game for a Hail Mary. That's the only time we should see the deep ball for a while out of him. Get back to his short throws, his timing throws, get his confidence going again, and help this kid out, And again, we also got to just keep running the ball too.
How bad is Zach Wilson at this point? How bad must he be? How bad must Quinn Ewers and his own personal brand that he dropped midseason in spite of taking like 2 snaps in his rookie year? How bad must these guys be? Z, I'll go to you first. For this guy to be stinking up the joint the way that he has been, Tua, these last few games in particular. And I know you're winning, right? And you're reticent to make changes when you're winning. It's tough to just pull a guy when you're winning the games, right? And I'm not calling for his head. I'm just saying, how bad must Zach Wilson be to not be able to take this guy's job right now?
That might not be it. You never know what it is. I'm not in the building. I can't tell you,
But he
why.
Just
I can think of
it's not
50
on the
plus
field.
million reasons why.
Exactly.
Tua
That, I know
Tagovailoa
I
is
don't
still
want to say
starting
it, but that's
quarterback in
why
my
the
I
opinion.
don't
kid's
hear about
playing.
the money though. If I'm a fan, do you guys?
Okay,
care about the
well,
money?
Stephen Ross
You're a
wants to
fan,
know about
though,
the money
Breeze.
because he's
That's the
paid in
problem.
check.
Come in here,
He's
make
got to
nothing
play.
and become a fan favorite. I watched Zach Thomas come in as a 6th round or whatever, 5th round draft pick and start his rookie year. I don't give a crap about the money. I want the guy out there who's going to make the plays.
I understand that, but Mike McDaniel is tethered to Tua Tagovailoa, and he's incentivized to make this work with Tua Tagovailoa because it's his job as the coach. He's part of the reason why they gave the contract extension. He advocated to the owner to give the contract extension, and the owner's not paying $50-something million to sit the kid on the bench because once you do, that's a point of no return that I don't think they're ready to open that Pandora's box yet this season because they keep winning. Now, if they would have lost the last 3 games, right, and we're waking up tomorrow morning and the Dolphins are 2-10, I think that conversation you could kind of start to have it, right? Because Mike McDaniel's probably out at this point. If you lose to the Saints and you lose to Washington and this kind of stretch run doesn't happen for you. But I think there's a lot of layers about investment and this year and next year and foundationally. And it's very messy web to try to untangle. And I, for one, do not blame them for continuing to try to work this out and work through, is this a rough patch? Is this a regression? It feels like it's a regression in some ways. But as we've said, like you see the flashes of kind of what it was when it was really clicking. So what's the root of that? And I think that's the hard thing to try to work through. But like, he was not the better quarterback on the field today, in my opinion. And I think that's going to create some very uncomfortable conversations when this season is all said and done about what are we going to do and who's going to be here to help us do it.
You're talking about not the better quarterback on the field between he and Tyler Shuck, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of scary when you think about that. The guy was 7 for 19 in the first half for like 63 yards. And you're saying he was the better quarterback on the field. It really is scary. I mean, we laugh about it a little bit, but it's not funny. They've been able to win the games. And to me, that's an incredible testament to Mike McDaniel, to this coaching staff, to the people in the building for keeping the wheel. But let's be very clear. Well, let me be very clear about this. I'm not speaking for you guys. You'll have your own chance to speak. But to keep the wheels on this thing, I mean, to have kept the wheels on this thing, and not only have kept the wheels on it, you know, we all thought the season was over after that Browns game. The Ravens game, maybe the same thing. Hey, we're on life support, man. This thing's over. 1, 2, 3 Cancun, you know. But to have kept the wheels on, to have kept showing up and fighting and winning 3 games in a row and now 4 out of 5 with what this team has faced in the adversity this season. I mean, to me, that's to me what pro sports is all about. You face, if I'm Stephen Ross, I want to be paying guys who show up every day and want to win and want to fight and keep doing what they've been doing in the face of this adversity. And maybe it really was just Chris Greer's fault and he just put together a crappy team. Maybe that was all they were missing, because the fight that we've seen, the desire that we've seen, the spirit that we've seen from, and I'm not singling anybody out, Z. I'm talking 1 to 53 and right on down.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I give these guys a lot of credit for where they started and where they're at right now, you know, to keep battling. And just like this game alone, you know, the defense could have fell apart in the second half, you know, with how the offense was playing. And, you know, especially after the pick again, you know, after they got the turnover. And I've been in those situations. And, you know, and when you're a struggling team, you go out there like, oh, here we go again. You know, that ball's not going to roll our way today. But I thought they went out, you know, they gave up some yards the second half. Yes, they gave up scores second half. I get all that. But they still battled. And that was good to see, you know, because they're a young defensive squad out there. And to go out there and give this team a chance, especially on that last drive, to hold them on 4th and inches, really. And to get the win was big time, you know, for Weave's defense today, I thought.
Yeah, it really was. We talked about Zach Sealer. We talked about Biggers before the show and the way that he played today, the push they're getting up front, the ability to have that young group coming together, as well as the veterans. When we talked about, you know, the trade deadline and the moves they made and didn't make. And I can't say enough about this defense. We should segue into that D-force. I mean, obviously they've been a force lately, right? With the takeaways, with holding teams. And again, they gave up too many points today, considering what they've been giving up in this win streak, that this is the most they've given up in this win streak in terms of points allowed. And it was 17, but what an unbelievable job by this defense, because, guys, as I'm looking up, and we have a quick break to get to, but it's the second quarter of this game. The Saints had 17 rushing yards and 3 first downs, and they're almost in the red zone, ready to make it a one-score game. And I'm thinking to myself, how in the hell is this even possible? In an NFL game, it flies in the face of everything I've ever been taught about this sport to think that they could have even been in the game at that point. So much credit to the Miami Dolphin defense, because it felt like they had to win 2 games today to win this one. I'm Grease, that's Z, that's Kyle. Kyle's going to tell you about Game Time in just a minute, and we got a half hour left of your squad show, breaking down the 21-17 win over New Orleans. 3 wins in a row, 4 out of 5. They're 5-7, creeping on back into it, but that defense with an incredible effort today. Enough about what's wrong with Tua. The offense, what they need to do in terms of running the ball, we already know that, but we're going to spotlight this defense and how well it has been playing as a unit, individual players as well, because that Jets game is going to be a tough one next week with a lot of physicality, and that defense is going to need to step up big again. We're going to talk about that on the other side. Kyle's got Game Time. This is Dolphins Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in your team every day.
The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it is going to be a massive event. But let's be honest, getting tickets to these events is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch. It finally gives fans real advantage when it comes time to snag your seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You can pull up the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through matchups and compare seat views. You could pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets locked in within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets to every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account, download the app, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time. Get me out of the middle.
There we go.
Yeah, my spot, Kyle.
How can my thumbs be too fat for a computer screen? I mean, I can understand a cell phone, but a computer screen, this is getting ridiculous, man. This is getting ridiculous. But what's not getting ridiculous, guys, is the Dolphin defense. And we are live on YouTube right after the games. And then, of course, with our midweek edition, noon Eastern, as well with your Dolphin Squad Show. And, of course, right after the games with Z, with Kyle on YouTube. Then after that show, we upload, you download Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Stitcher, Podbean. And you down with OPP? No, of course not. Look at me. OTT, over the top television. That's the new OPP. It's called OTT. And that's Jeff Zgonina in the middle, wondering what in the hell I'm talking about, just like the rest of you. That's Kyle Krabs, host of Locked On Dolphins, the number 10 channel on 220 plus channels of the #1 sports podcast network in the world, the Locked On Podcast Network. And guys, nobody gives a lot of love to the big uglies up front playing defense. And Z, I'm not saying you were ever ugly. That's up to you when you look in the mirror. But the guys up front, man, for the Dolphins, it's no coincidence that the defense has gotten better and better. The number of points scored has gone down every week. They're getting takeaways in every game, 2 more today. And their last 4 games, obviously, they won 4 out of 5. Their last 3 that they've won in a row, their most takeaways of the season. But it starts up front, man. It starts up front. Ever since the trade deadline, Jalen gets traded. You don't know if Chubb's going to be here. Chop's playing a lot more. But those guys in the middle were saying, hey, we're going to assert ourselves here too. So guys like Grant and Biggers and Sealer have been a big key for the way this team's been playing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Biggers got a big sack today. You know, it was his first one, right? So, you know, he's doing some good things for being, you know, a low-drafted guy, right? So, I mean, they're doing some good things up front, you know, because Wheat doesn't bring a lot of heat that much. You know, he brought the one when Micah got the strip sack and that and a couple later, but he's letting those 4 guys up front rush, you know, and try to affect the quarterback. And we had some tip balls today, which is always a help, you know, and, you know, they're doing some good things. And they're playing the run game really well, too. You know, they're getting off blocks better. You know, a couple times guys were arm over and jetting upfield. I don't know, maybe they had a pressure call or something, but they get displaced a little bit when that happens. But when they play solid run technique on the front, you know, they're making some plays.
Yeah, 4 more sacks, 5 more tackles for loss. Kyle, they're in the backfield, and that's a good place for them to be. Even on a play like when Fitzpatrick comes on the blitz and forces the fumble, Zach Sealer's right there to pick it up. Little 5-yard return for Zach. Maybe you should have fallen on the ball, but it's nice. They're dialing up the blitzes. They're getting penetration, but the Dolphins are winning at the line of scrimmage, Kyle. They're winning at the line of scrimmage, and that's why they're winning games.
Yeah, it's a pretty far cry from the first month of the season, right? And all those young guys playing and Zeke Biggers being put into the rotation in favor of Matthew Butler and Jordan Phillips and the role that he had in stuffing the quarterback sneak on 4th and inches for the game on the line with Tyler Shuck there at the end of the game as a rookie and Kenneth Grant and what his growth has looked like. The irony is not lost to me that in a game in which you won ugly, you got a couple of the bounces of the ball versus earlier in the season, you had a chance to win and the ball didn't bounce your way. The deciding play in the game in your favor was your young defensive interior stuffing a quarterback run on a defensive effort in which you allowed 3 yards per carry on the day. That's not lost on me, the irony of that, and I think that's a great testament to that individual position room and the growth that they have shown throughout the course of the first 12 games of the season, where those guys started to where they are now. Anthony Weaver's comfort and who is capable of doing what and getting those combinations of personnels right, where they're kind of matching complementary skill sets, where early on it was a lot of the rookies playing next to each other and your odd man fronts and Benito Jones and figuring out the right role for him and getting Zeke Biggers in the rotation. It's been a really good job with that group of guys. And the Dolphins, after giving up more than 20 points in every single one of their first 7 games on the season, they've given up 17 points or less in 4 of their last 5 games.
They sure
and
have.
That includes efforts against
all wins.
Atlanta, who's up and down. It includes Buffalo. That includes the last 2 against teams that aren't particularly good across the board. And New Orleans has had struggle scoring 20 points in this season. They've only done it twice this season. But the way in which they've turned it around and forcing multiple turnovers for the 3rd straight week, I think this defense has a lot that they can be proud of for the growth. And how about Minkah making that big play to put really the deciding points on the board for you? I think that was an outstanding individual effort on that play too.
Yeah, you're right, Kyle. I think Fitzpatrick's really cranked up the heat. His play the last 4 or 5 games has been fantastic. And Jordan Brooks and Tyrell Dodson have been elite all season long. And guys feed off that. And Kyle, I'm going to throw this out there for you because all year long, you've been waiting for this guy to get more snaps and more reps and more run and see what he's going to do with it. I'm going to throw it out there. Chop had a sack and a half today.
He did. Now, the run defense effort, we still need to get a little bit more consistent. I think we got bailed out a few times on runs that bounced outside with guys chasing them down from depth and stringing out the runs. And that's kind of been, you think back to Anthony Weaver and the big rah-rah speech about a month and a half ago, talking about all of our problems can be solved by violence, right? And the conscious decision to put your helmet in a guy's chin and set the edge. And I don't think we've seen that from Chop. But the other thing that Anthony Weaver said is the more Chop plays, the better feel he's going to have for the game. And I think that kind of showed up in this game where there were probably a few times where we didn't have great rush lane integrity rushing the passer and gave up some edges for Shuck to get outside the pocket. But we had a retrace in one of those opportunities. We drew a critical holding penalty when Shuck got outside the pocket because we didn't end up playing behind the quarterback on that one where he got outside the pocket to draw a hold and put him back to 1st and 20. So it's just a matter of consistency, right? And I would be curious if they didn't have the snap logjam that they had early in the season, what Chop would look like if he was more of a primary player and not playing 20 to 24 snaps in the first 8 games of the season. But that's kind of for him individually what I will be watching for throughout the course of the last 5 games to see, okay, what does your individual progression look like? And are you like everybody else where you're going to get better as we go? Is this just a stagnant year or a regression year for whatever reason? But in this game, you kind of got some of those splash plays, and now it's okay, let's raise the floor of the rest of it and keep the splash plays, and we can cook from there.
Where would they be, Z, without Jack Jones and Rasul Douglas, man? I mean, these two guys, right? I mean, do you think about the way that they came to the team and the way that we were talking about them early in the season and what they've done? And Rasul Douglas with another big interception today, and Jack Jones has made big play after big play back there, and the secondary was just so in flux for so long early in the season.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, they're playing as a unit finally. Before it was like 3 different levels. Every week, one of the levels was taking a turn of who was going to play good and who was going to play bad. But now they're playing complementary football on that side of the ball, and you're seeing the results with the turnovers and the stops and the 3 and outs. And it's fun watching those guys play because they're playing with a lot of juice out there, which is always good. But like Kyle said, though, we got to clean up those edges, though, both in in the pass rush and in the run game, because it was getting pretty sketchy when we're going to get some of these teams that can get to that edge. It's going to be long gones again, and we got to clean that up big time.
Yeah, and it happened late in the game. A lot of this, guys, and the Saints actually ended up winning some of the statistical categories, which tells you how crazy it got late for Miami because they completely dominated this game for 3 quarters. But Saints actually had 20 first downs to 16 for Miami. Total plays 69 to 59 for New Orleans. Again, these got really skewed late in the game. Total yards 298 to 294 Miami. That was really late in the game as well. Yards per play, 5.1 to 4.3 Miami with the edge there. Passing yards, 213 to 134 New Orleans over Miami. Tua just did not have a good game at all. We'll give you his numbers in a moment. Rushing yards, only 81 for the Saints, 164 for Miami, 32 carries, another game over 30 carries running the football offensively. The coaches clearly have that as a gauge and a barometer, right? In the red zone, New Orleans 2 for 2, Miami 0 for 2. That continues to be a problem. Remember the 2 fourth down stops against the Commanders in Madrid. Penalties, Miami fewer penalties. They only had 3 for 15 yards. Good job by the Dolphins there. The fumbles, Tua tried to lose one on the first drive, took a couple sacks as well, but had the interception thrown. So really the Saints ended up in control when it comes to the stats. They won the statistical battle. But for 3 quarters, Kyle, I'll start with you. It was very different than that. That all got stuffed in the 4th quarter for New Orleans. Late, they get the late touchdown. The Dolphins almost in a position to lose that game after dominating it. And it did remind me a lot of the first half against the Ravens. Difference is the Saints are nowhere near in the same class as the Ravens. So to me, I haven't seen that cleaned up since the Ravens game. And even the Commanders game, way too many mistakes, way too many close calls by the skin of your teeth against a team that, in the Commanders' case, was so banged up and injured they almost didn't belong on the same field. The Saints clearly didn't belong on the same field, and yet you're almost letting these vastly inferior teams come back on you. What would your reaction be to that, and how do you even begin, Kyle, to start to clean something like that up?
Yeah, I mean, just going by the Saints drive charts, right? 3 for 8 and a punt. 3 for 6 and a punt, 3 for 7 and a punt, 4 for 4 and a fumble, 3 for 0 and a punt, 11 for 48 that ends in an interception. That's their first half possessions defensively for Miami going against New Orleans' offense. That's what they were able to do. They had one possession in which they got more than 8 yards of offense in the first half. And they come out of half and they seems like they make some adjustments, right? They go 10 for 65 and they go 8 for 32. You buckle down, they punt. You go 3 for -2, they punt again. So you're through 1, 2, I'm going to do math live on the show, which is always dangerous. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Your first 9 possessions end in turnovers or punts with the exception of 1, and that was coming out of half. So 8 of your first 9 are punts or turnovers. And they go 10 for 37 in the field goal. They go 7 for 55 in a minute and 46 seconds for the touchdown, right? So it's kind of an unfortunate circumstance that the stats kind of went the way that they did. You want to execute better. Certainly felt like New Orleans going with tempo kind of got you out of some of your communication and be able to get lined up. And then you're in the late game sequence and you're watching them try to defend. And it's like, okay, we're running guys on and off and substituting. And we got safeties running from the sideline to try to play the deep half on the other side. They're sprinting to get over there at the snap, and the defensive line's not really set to rush. So if I was the defensive coaching staff, I'd be looking at how we handled tempo. I think that would probably be one of the things that I would be most closely looking at as far as getting on the guys for corrections and Kind of the same thing about the offensive side of the ball, where they talked about, oh, we brought Frank Smith down out of the box and we put the emphasis and the point of emphasis on getting out of the huddle and getting lined up and getting ready to play. And it felt like tempo kind of tagged them a little bit in that regard. So I'll see what the tape ends up saying on that regard, but just off of kind of watching it on the TV copy along with you guys, that was something that stood out to me as an adjustment that I kind of felt like we were a little bit slow to adjust to, and it tagged you where he gave up some chunk plays later in the game.
Yeah, and punt, field goal downs on the last 4 possessions too, Z. Punt, field goal downs. They had a 9-play drive where they kicked a field goal. Tua did make that one throw for 22 yards to Waddle to set up that field goal. Without it, they probably wouldn't have won the game. But other than that, the offense just did not make any plays in the stretch run of this game that could have put this one away. They literally had to hold on because they did not make the plays that they needed to make. And that has to change. They're not going to beat the Jets if they don't make a couple more plays that they didn't make today.
No, the one that bothered me was, the 4th down when they didn't have Achane in there. He'd been killing them, and they put the young kid in there and they got a tackle for a loss, and that just it didn't make sense to me. You're loading up for the run, put your top dog in there. He's got a hot hand. He's rolling. He's making the right cuts. He's accelerating. He's going to get you that yard that we needed. And, we went and it didn't happen. And to me, that's unexcusable.
That was Ollie Gordon, and you're right about that, Z. Kyle, I remember that play. He got caught from the backside pursuit because he hesitated before he cut back and ran, which Achane would not have done. That's a great point, Z, because he did hesitate. And on that play, you can't block everybody, right? Because one guy has the ball, and the one guy you can't block is the one guy you can't let run you down from the backside, which Ollie Gordon did on that play. So great job, Z, with breaking that down. All right, we got one more segment to go. We are going to look ahead to the Jets, Jets. But, hey, on the bright side, guys, they won the game. They've won 3 in a row and 4 out of 5. On the bright side, we had a football game to talk about, only the second one in 28 days that we've had here on the show. And so we're going to talk about another one that's coming up 7 days from now, the New York Jets, who all of a sudden have some life, who all of a sudden have a big win and some wind in their sails and 1 million draft picks coming up, and would love nothing more than to beat the Miami Dolphins and end your playoff hopes next week on the road. Jets, Jets on the other side. This is your Dolphin Squad Show post-game edition. That's Z, that's Kyle, I'm Grease. Locked On Podcast Network, #1 in the world, and your team every day. All right, wrapping it up on the Squad Show. Post-game edition, 21-17, the final. The Dolphins hold on to beat the New Orleans Saints, and really a terrible team in New Orleans at 2-10 now. And the Dolphins are 5-7, but an ugly win, just like the Commanders win a couple of weeks ago. But, hey, in the NFL, after enough time goes by, you don't even remember how those wins happened, right? A win is a win, just like a loss is a loss. It doesn't matter if you lost to the Chargers by 2 points or 100, right? You still lost to them and they have the tiebreaker. But Tua, 12 out of 23, 157 yards, no touchdowns, an interception, sacked 4 times. Achane, 22 carries, 134 yards, 6.1 per carry. Congratulations to Achane, his first 1,000-yard season rushing the football in the NFL. I'm pretty sure it won't be his last. Also, had a touchdown, but oddly enough, did not catch a ball today and was only targeted once. And that is something that Kyle had pointed out a little bit earlier. Your leading receiver, 2 catches for Darren Waller, 47 yards, impact right away coming back. But those 2 catches were very early in the game. And then after that, Waddle had 3 for 40, Malik Washington 4 for 30. And defensively, Jordan Brooks, another good game, 12 tackles, 6 solo, 1 for a loss. Chop Robinson had a sack and a half. Micah Fitzpatrick had a forced fumble, tackle for a loss, and a huge return of a 2-point conversion that went the wrong way for the Saints late that stopped them from kicking a potential field goal that really could have messed things up and lost this game late for Miami. Rasul Douglas had a big interception in the game as well when the Saints were driving toward the end of the first half, and nice return on that one as well that allowed the Dolphins to kick a field goal before the end of the half. So the defense has been making huge plays all over the field as the Dolphins guys have won 3 in a row and 4 out of 5, regardless of what we've talked about, how bad Tua was, play calls here, letting a team like the Saints stay in it. Regardless of what happened, these last 2 games have been wins. They've taken care of business. They've won 3 in a row and 4 out of 5. And now we've been pointing to this stretch run, The Jets were the last game in this stretch run. You got to win these games and get to 6-7. How has the way, Z, that you see this Jets team and this particular game for the Dolphins to have to go up there and win, how much have the Jets changed over these past couple of weeks that we've been pointing at this game that maybe change your outlook for the Dolphins heading up there going into this one?
Well, it's not going to be a walk in the park by any means. I mean, they, won a walk-off kick today to win the game against Atlanta. And, I watched a little bit on the other screen while I was watching the Dolphin game. Atlanta was rolling them pretty good in the run game.
Yeah, they were, right? Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened because I quit watching it and it was 24-24, so something must have happened because this Jet team is playing with a lot of juice. They traded two of their big stars away on defense and the team has rallied behind the coach, and they're playing hard and they're a scrappy little team right now. And, these guys are getting chances, replacing these guys that left, to get in this league and stay in this league. So they're playing inspired football up there. It's not going to be a walk in the park for us to go up there, play at their place, and try to string one up, so it's going to be, we're going to get after it, and we're going to have to come out of halftime and play some good football. That's the problem with our team. It seems like we come out of halftime a little slow and we get, tail of two halves always. And we got to correct that and go up there and it's going to be a fight.
Kyle, they've won 3 out of 5. The Jets have, and they had lost 2 in a row to Baltimore and New England coming into this game today, but they're not the same Jets that they were earlier in the year. And the Dolphins are not the same Dolphins. Remember when the two teams played and the Dolphins finally got their first win and you go, oh, but it's against the Jets. Both these teams have improved tremendously since that game.
Yeah, it's for New York, Aaron Glenn's coming in trying to instill a culture, and they offload some players, and they trade Sauce Gardner, and they trade Quinnen Williams, and they bench Justin Fields, and I think that gives them a level of competency in the passing game that they really did not have with Justin Fields in favor of Tyrod Taylor, who made some plays with his legs, but he also went 19 of 33 in this game. Only took 2 sacks, had a touchdown pass. It was an explosive play. They hit an explosive to Adonai Mitchell for a 52-yard score, and that was kind of like the big jolt for their offense. So the book on Tyrod is pretty well established of what he is and is not as an NFL quarterback. He's going to take what's available to him. He can use his legs and get some yardage there if you need to. And that's for Miami. Like the self-inflicted wound stuff, it can't happen in this game because against the Jets, because Tyrod Taylor's not going to make the boneheaded plays, or at least that's the body of work. He can at times be overly conservative. And if that's the case, then you got to play this one close to the vest. Now, the Jets got their second defensive turnover of the season in this game against Atlanta. Right? They have 2 defensive turnovers, 2 takeaways as a team for the season through 12 games.
That's incredible.
So
that's hard.
That's the other thing you can't do, right? Like you can't give them life.
They're not even takeaways. Those are giveaways. Like you just play long enough and you eventually get a giveaway or 2.
And I don't think that they were both fumbles. Like they don't have an interception on the season. So that's where you look at Tua Tagovailoa and his play. I think the good news is there's some familiarity there, right? Like a lot of these, the second time they played the Bills, you got a better job getting some chunk plays. Obviously, the 43-yard touchdown pass to Jalen Waddle was an explosive play, right? You played the Falcons, and you have a lot of familiarity with defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich because he was with the Jets. You kind of know how they want to play you and how they choose to play you versus we got done talking about the Washington game, and I'm not making excuses for the execution for the passing game perspective, but Dan Quinn came in and changed the defensive play calling, and that was a big talking point for us after the game in Madrid. And in this game, it's Brandon Staley, and from a metrics perspective, they had a pretty good pass defense there, and Staley kind of got the runaround a little bit for his reputation because of how things ended with the Chargers, but he's a good defensive mind. So, how much of this does familiarity and knowing what to expect help you to be more efficient versus having to react in real time and make decisions with the football? And I think that's going to go a long way in deciding how much success the Dolphins have passing the football against the Jets. But I think they're going to need it to go on the road and win this football game next week.
Yeah, they're going to have to. That's a great point, Kyle. They're going to need all the things that we've been talking about that have been going wrong for them on this show today. And, the Jets, Z, this goes to show too. I mean, they added a lot of draft picks, and everybody talked about their moves at the deadline and all the draft picks that they brought in. But they brought in some solid vets too. Guys like John Mechie and Mitchell, the receiver, Harrison Phillips, the defensive tackle, has bolstered their run defense. And so it's not just always the flashy names and the big draft picks. So Jarvis Brownlee Jr., a nickelback, they've made some key additions, vets that they've brought in. That these aren't world beaters. These aren't the guys that are going to stuff the stat sheets and be in the highlights, but they make a difference for wins and losses. And the Jets shored up a lot of things. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because that's something that we've seen the Dolphins do throughout the course of the season, is plug those holes and fill those gaps. And you never know what a guy's going to do when you give him a shot. And both these teams, through different means, have been able to do that these past few weeks. And what a difference, though, Z, these two teams between the first meeting and the second meeting, how much better each team is now. They're playing so much better football, the Jets and the Dolphins, both of them.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, the Jets, all those guys are playing in a new system, so it took a while for them to, adjust to it, to learn it, to get all the ins and outs of it, to be able to not think and just play football. And it's showing. That's no different than with the Dolphins, especially on defense. Because we talked about it, week in, week out, all these young players that we've had and all these guys we've brought in because of injury who haven't been in the system. And it took a while for everybody to gel. And, again, you're playing fast. You're not thinking. You're just playing. It's second nature, muscle memory. And that's how you have, success. And I think both teams have gotten to that point.
It's crazy when you think about the Jets and the Dolphins where they were earlier this season. And, if you just took a poll of the two fan bases of which quarterback does each one want less, I don't want them, you take them. I mean, these two guys have got to be their owners, don't want them. Was it Justin Fields was crying in his closet earlier this year after Woody Johnson yelled at him? I mean, it's just been a tough year for these two quarterbacks, Kyle.
Yeah, it's I think Justin Fields, you've been kind of hoping that the light bulb was going to come on for the physical talent, and I don't think the Jets really, it didn't feel like they called an offense that really leaned into what Justin's well established at, which is the quarterback run game and being +1 because the quarterback can run the ball and having an extra gap at your disposal in that regard. Like, they didn't really do a lot of that. And as a result, like, you kind of put Justin in the position where you were hoping he was going to grow into being something that he hasn't shown he is this year. And if they want somebody who is going to take what the defense gives you and keep things on schedule, but maybe he's not going to make explosive plays, but also not really going to be turnover prone, I think Tyrod Taylor makes a lot of sense for them. But I would also say this, for their performance today, their passing game, Adonai Mitchell has a 52-yard catch. That explosive removed from the equation. John Mechie has 4 for 19. Jeremy Ruckert has 2 for 12. Brees Hall has 2 for 8. Mason Taylor has 2 for 21. And Alan Lazard has 1 for 10. Right? Like, so Adonai Mitchell really got them going in this game. And that's where I think you have to just continue to limit explosive plays. If you limit explosive plays and if you don't turn the ball over, I think you have more talent than where New York is, especially after they tore their roster down to the studs. So that this equation to win for me is going to be very simple. It's just a question of, can you do it? Because it has not, you have not had a lot of confidence infused that the Dolphins are going to play that style of football as of late, just because of where the risk has come as far as turning the football over and being loose with the football.
It'll be interesting. I'll go with my final thought real quick first, guys, because I'm looking forward to this game, seeing the Dolphins and Jets next week. We'll have our middle of the week show as well, obviously at noon Eastern on Wednesday, and next week's game against the Jets, everything on the line for Miami as they have crept all the way back to 5-7, as they have crept all the way back to within 2 games away from 500. But my final thought is, who can figure out this league, Z? Who can figure out this league? The Ravens hanging by a thread. The Chiefs all but eliminated. They have to win out and get all kinds of help for them to even make the playoffs. Right now, the Lions losing to the Packers. The Bears beat the Eagles this weekend. And the Rams lost today to the Panthers. So every time someone creeps ahead, every time you start to say, hey, this team's the cream of the crop. Hey, these teams are the best teams in the league. To pull a Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. I can't figure this league out, man. I'm almost giving up at this point, Z.
That's why it's a great game, because you never know. You got a bunch of athletes out there, professionals playing every week. If they play hard, take care of the ball, they have a chance. That's why there's a lot of parity to this league.
Well, I do know this. The Dolphins are 1 win away from being that one game under 500 heading into that Pittsburgh game on the Monday night and the Bengals game the week after that on Sunday Night Football. Kyle, I know you have a lot of big stuff coming up this week, Locked On Dolphins podcast, as well as our show on Wednesday. So what's your final thought today?
Yeah, final thought today is a win is a win. It's always nice to make corrections through a win, even if it's ugly. There's a lot that this Dolphins team can clean up. I think they showed their youth. It was yet another example of this team getting out multiple scores in front of a team and not finishing the game. And I think there's perhaps some progress here that we made a couple critical defensive plays down the stretch that helped us to allow us to win this game. When I think if you played this game 2 months ago, they probably find a way to lose this game, right? And that's the silver lining I'm taking into a week of corrections, and eager to see this team kind of take their medicine off of this one, despite it being a win, and put a better effort forth against the Jets. And I think that's a must for this team with what's at stake for everybody who's in place with the organization, trying to prove that they should continue to be in place with this organization.
You know what? Every time I think I'm out, Kyle pulls me back in, Z. That's a great point that you just made, Kyle, because these were two really tough wins that they picked up these last two games. I mean, in the midst of flying over to Madrid and having a bye week and playing on a Thursday night before that, and just the way that they gutted out these wins over the Commanders and over the Saints today. I mean, I almost feel bad sitting here making it all negative, because they deserve so much credit, Z, for just pulling those wins. You know how tough those wins are in the NFL. I don't care who you're playing.
Oh, yeah. Again, this team's building. It's, again, we made it negative day, like you said, because the quarterback play was a little bit off, but again, everybody else is playing some good football. We had some guys back from injury that played well. It's good to see them out there. And, I'm looking forward to this Jet game, because it's a big game, division game. Both teams are struggling a little bit, but playing good football. And I think it's going to be a really good game.
We never got you to rate the Zach Sealer dance move. We had Z.
I didn't see it.
In the middle with the Heisman pose.
Again, white man should not be dancing.
Uh-oh, there we go. We'll leave it on that note. And, man, look at Kyle smiling. We're happy today. They got the win. The blood pressure went up a little bit. The bourbon consumption might have gone a little bit with it, but the win is the win. 3 in a row, 4 out of 5 for your Miami Dolphins, the greatest football team. They're playing that song a lot at Hard Rock Stadium, but a win is a win, and now you go on the road to try to get to within a game of 500, and waiting there with just drool hanging off every tooth are the New York Jets, trying to knock you off that win streak and keep their own brand of football going. They got a little win streak of themselves going right now, 3 out of 5 and 1 in a row now after that win over Atlanta. But we'll be here Wednesday at noon with your midweek edition. Thank you so much for watching the Dolphins Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 podcast network in the world, and your team every day. For Z, for Kyle, I'm Grease. Keep your game tight and your mind right. Enjoy the win streak, Miami. 3 in a row.